I'm sorry. I know I was supposed to do this video like back in September. I moved across the world, okay? Give me a break. But anyway, I do have exciting news. This video is sponsored by, me. If you want to hire me as a tutor, get some help, we can Zoom, I can provide feedback, I can make up for all of the lack of feedback that your real TOK teacher gave you. I love to help you out. I'll put my Fiverr links at the bottom. Get in touch with me over email. I'm not going to write your essay for you. I'm not going to help you cheat. I'm going to give you some great evidence at the end of this video. I'm also going to tell you what to put in your conclusion. So let's get an A on the TOK essay prompt number 5. All right, so the prompt is this, and I love this one. How can we distinguish between good and bad interpretations? Discuss with reference to the arts and one other area of knowledge. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to understand that they're really asking you to talk about two things here. The first thing that you're obviously going to talk about, and just don't talk about it too much, is good and bad interpretations. You got to talk about that no matter what AOK you include with the arts. But the question they're asking and the answer that you're going to provide is actually how we distinguish between the good and the bad. So regardless of what evidence you use, and honestly with this one, the evidence really doesn't have to be that great. You want to be talking about not what happened, don't talk about what they believed, don't talk about how they interpreted. What you want to be talking about is how they drew that line between good and bad interpretation. So there's a little bit of a trick there, and some TOK prompts, they can kind of get distracting, and this is definitely one. So I'm going to be making a organization breakdown in a couple weeks, hopefully sooner than that. But no matter how you organize your essay, what I really want to encourage you to do is organize each paragraph in this way. So you're going to have a topic sentence, because if you don't, you didn't graduate 8th grade, then you're going to have your evidence, which is either going to be a quote, describing a piece of art, describing a scientific study, because I do suggest doing either the natural sciences or the human sciences with this prompt, and I'll explain why in a minute. And then you will discuss, and I know I said don't do it, I said do it, but just don't go overboard. Discuss the interpretation. Was it good or was it bad? But then at the end of every paragraph, what I want you to do is tell me how we distinguish whether or not it's good or bad. How did we draw the line to say that was good or bad? Did the knowledge authority in your example draw the line, or did you draw the line? So how did you decide, or how did the person in the situation decide that the interpretation of the art or the scientific study was good? What did you do? That's the key. And so you're going to do that. I would say you can stick this in 2 sentences at the end of every single paragraph. Now remember, the evidence, don't go overboard with this. You want to be able to describe things as quickly as possible. So your analysis, the discussion of the interpretation, and how you draw that line, so that is the majority of your paragraph. These 2 highlighted sections right here, these should be 50% of each paragraph. If your evidence, if you describing something is more than your analysis, you will not get a good score. So like I said, I'm not going to do the analysis for you, but I'm going to show you what I guarantee you is going to be the most overused piece of evidence for this and for a lot of stuff. This is used all the time, so I would not suggest using this. So I'm going to use it here. Also, if you steal my example, it's going to be on my website, so don't steal it. It will come up as plagiarized. But I'm going to show you an example of how I would follow this format, so that you can see how a proper balance exists between evidence and analysis, and then that closing sentence. So please also remember, I wrote this in about 5 minutes. This is not great, but I'm doing this to show you how I would answer the prompt. So we're going to talk about, of course, because we're in DP and we always talk about this with art, we're going to talk about the artwork, the sculpture called Fountain by Duchamp, I don't know how you pronounce it. And all it is this guy in like the 20th century, he's like, I'm going to make art. And he turned a toilet, a urinal, sideways and called it a fountain, and then said it was art. And now today we think that art can be anything. Well, why do we think art can be anything? It's actually because of the stupid toilet, okay? So this is the perspective that the TOK people have already said. Everyone believes that now that art can be whatever, that the perceiver creates the value, creates the meaning. But it wasn't always the case. Why is that now the case? Why is that our artistic paradigm? It's because of this stupid toilet. So if I was going to use this as evidence, here's the paragraph that I would write. So here's my topic sentence, and I'll make it look a little bit different for each one. So my topic sentence would be this. Some artists, probably most artists in today's world, let me make that bigger for you because I know you can't read it. Some artists, probably most artists in today's world, believe that there is no difference between good and bad interpretation. There is no way to distinguish good from bad. It doesn't even matter. So there's my stylish topic sentence. You can tell I'm an English teacher. Okay, so just introduce stuff. Now I'm going to drop in my evidence, okay? And my evidence is going to be a few more lines, but it's not going to be a lot. This perspective was ushered into the mainstream by Duchamp's fountain, which was a urinal with the name R. Mutt printed on it. Duchamp entered it in a gallery as art. In his perspective, it was art because he said it was art, because he's the creator, he's the knowledge authority. According to the Tate Museum's website, that's my citation, Fountain was rejected as a piece of art by the Parisian Salon des Indépendants. 2 members resigned in protest about this. But since then, the world has widely accepted that a toilet or anything can be art. So this is my evidence, okay? Now I'm going to jump to my discussion, connecting it to the prompt, and then also answering the prompt with the last 2 sentences. See how I do this here. I'm going to make it big. Okay. When asked to interpret the essence of art, Fountain and its reception teaches that the world, society, and history help distinguish between good and bad interpretations, literally taking that phrase out of the title. When Fountain debuted, it was rejected by the artistic authorities of the day. They interpreted a urinal not to be art, but 100 years later, that interpretation has been decided to be wrong. You know what? I should say bad. As virtually all artists, critics, and art students recognize the toilet as a paradigm-shifting work, TOK, that changed how art can work. In this case, good and bad interpretations are distinguished, so now I'm answering the prompt in my last 2 sentences by how the line was drawn. In this case, good and bad interpretations are distinguished not by knowledge, but rather the collective shared knowledge of humanity. In the arts, consensus can often distinguish good and bad interpretations. Guys, this is so easy. This is not brilliant, by the way. This is not a 10. I made this in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, but here's what I do. I use this phrase from the prompt twice in the last 2 sentences. Here I'm discussing how it was good, how it was bad, and then I'm answering how we drew the line. If you follow this format, I think you'll get a really good grade. Okay, so I know why you're really here. You're hoping that I'll do all of your research for you and your analysis. I'm not, but I've got some really good examples. I'm sharing these with you because I share them with my class. And so I figured if I'm going to share them with my class, I'm going to share them with, my awesome YouTube class, fam, whatever you are. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of things here. I'm going to put the images up on the big box, which is somewhere, but cool. So the first thing is called Foot Soldier of Birmingham, and this is actually an episode of the awesome Revisionist History podcast by Malcolm Gladwell. And if you see on the artwork here, I've got it over on my other screen. I'm so cool. I've got 3 monitors now. If you look at it, there is a statue, and the statue is a work of art, obviously, but it doesn't totally reflect what happened in history. And so when we look at the art, we have to interpret the art as, is this a reflection of reality? Or what is the art actually supposed to be? And if we know the truth, what does a good and bad interpretation mean? So that's the Foot Soldier of Birmingham, and that's a podcast by Malcolm Gladwell called Revisionist History. Okay, the next piece of evidence that I might use is, I hate this. Gosh, I'm not even going to put this on my computer because I just don't want to look at this. It's a sculpture called Mother, and you can Google it, and it's a spider, but the meaning behind the art is actually to be about being a good mother and reminding you of your mom. If this is what my mom looked like, I would not make a statue for her. But yeah, how we interpret this art, there's a bunch of different things that we can do to interpret it. What makes it good or bad? I don't know. I just don't like looking at spiders. Okay, the next thing I would choose is a quote, which would be a really short way of bringing in some evidence. Roger Ebert, the greatest film critic alive, one of the greatest critics alive, he said video games can never be art. His interpretation we are taking because he's a genius. He's brilliant. But is that a good interpretation of video games? Or a bad interpretation of video games? So I would check out that quote, check out his justification for that, and then decide how is he drawing that line. Okay, the next thing I would look at is, don't choose all of these, I'm just saying check out these as you research. John Cage wrote a song song called 433, and it's a song of nothing but silence, and he actually performs it. Is this good or bad? So if somebody says this is good art, how are they drawing that line? If somebody says this is bad art, how are they drawing that line? If you want to look at more stupid art, you can check out the Rothko Chapel. Again, people love this stuff. I think it's garbage. I saw it in Washington, D.C. It's just terrible. But yeah, it's supposed to be spiritual. I think it's stupid. So how do we decide whether or not my interpretation is good? Okay, the next thing, yeah, we can talk about just awards. So think about the Oscars, the Academy Awards. How do they decide whether something is good or bad, or great versus good? How do they decide that as voters of the Academy? Another thing you can look at is religious films. So what distinguishes a superb film like The Passion of the Christ versus a terrible film like Fireproof? We interpret one to be art, and we interpret one to be religious. Why is that? Where does the line drawn between a good religious film and a bad religious film? I'm very opinionated about this. I'm a Christian, but I don't like Christian films. Okay, the last thing, I got this from the TOK textbook, is the artist Rick Gibson. He had a artwork with Sniffy the rat where he was gonna, as you can see in the picture, just destroy the rat as art. And now we can talk about ethics, but that's not what we're talking about with this, remember. So you might want to talk about the ethical nature of this. Don't. Talk about how this was interpreted. Was it good or bad? This was interpreted to be unethical. How was that line drawn? Okay, so that's my ideas for the arts, and you're probably wondering, why aren't I talking about more AOK? So I would just tell you, choose the natural sciences, choose the human sciences. It doesn't matter, because in every scientific study, what you're really doing is you're interpreting, okay? So look at any scientific study that you want to. It doesn't matter really what they found. What matters is how they interpret it. And what you need to do is find different perspectives in how they took the data, took the findings, and drew their own conclusions. So the drawing of conclusions based on raw data, that is interpretation. So find 2 or 3 different ways that data was interpreted, and then think about what was the good and what was the bad. What if they drew bad interpretations? Why did they do that? And then most importantly, how did you know that was bad? Okay, and then finally, just no matter what you do, please make sure you don't talk about interpretation. You don't talk about good and bad interpretations. Please remember that the whole time you should be distinguishing the line between good and bad. You should be distinguishing the line, talking about how they drew the line. What was good, what was bad, that's cool. But how did they know it was good or bad? All right, that's really it. I'm gonna do number 6 next, because I'm getting all this spam emails about do number 6. Okay, fine, I'm going to do it. Also, if you're still here, hire me as a tutor. I'll help you out, and you can meet me and say, hey, your videos are awesome. And then, yeah, you can support me to buy my children dinner. Cool. All right, hope TOK sucks a little bit less. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.